Hello, I am Marijn van Vliet from Aalto University, and I would like to talk to you about why computational modeling is super useful for MEG research, and I wish we would do it more often. Computational models allow us to posit concrete theories about brain function and compute the implications of this theory and then test these predictions against actual MEG data. Have a clear working model that our study can then support, refute, and ultimately improve. So, with that in mind, I want to show you a computational model I've been working on. This is a model of visual word recognition. It takes a bitmap image of some rendered text and indicates which word was written there. My model is a VGG11 convolutional network. It's a deep learning model that was designed for image classification. The model was pre-trained on ImageNet, and then I started training it using bitmap images of written words until it had a vocabulary of 10,000 words, which it could recognize with an accuracy of 99.9%. I've been comparing the model to MEG recordings by presenting the same image to both the model and the volunteer in the scanner. The MEG data was taken from a study by Vartiainen et al. 15 volunteers were presented with different types of visual stimuli. And the experimental contrast was such that we can find 3 evoked components of interest that are reported frequently in the literature. These components were extracted using equivalent dipole modeling in XFIT. I summarized the behavior of each of these components by looking at the amount of activation of the corresponding dipole in response to each stimulus. And you can see that each component responds in different ways to the stimuli. Next, we feed the same stimuli through our computational model and record the total activity in each layer. Now, we can compare the behavior of the evoked components to the activity in the layers of the model. The first evoked component, located on the visual cortex, responds sharply to the amount of visual noise in the stimulus. And we see the same behavior in the first layers of our model. The second component is found a little further along the ventral stream, and it shows a decrease in activation to noisy stimuli. And more importantly, it also has a larger response to stimuli that contain letters versus the stimuli that contain symbols. And when we look at the model, we see this same sensitivity to letters beginning to form in the later layers. The first fully connected layer in the model shows the same pattern of activity to the stimuli as our evoked component does. The third component that we find in the temporal cortex differentiates between valid and pseudo words versus things that are obviously not words, such as consonant strings. And this behavior we see forming in the final layer of our model. In conclusion, the model I've presented here is overly simplistic in many ways, I know. And yet, it already explains some key observations that we see in our MEG studies. And hence, I would like to propose this as our baseline model for visual word recognition. So now that we have this baseline model, we can start to modify it to incorporate these theories. For example, instead of just saying top-down connections are probably important, we can use the model to propose exactly how these connections would work. Or more likely, we could posit multiple ways of how they could work, and then we can evaluate them against each other and against the baseline. And then we will see some rapid progress.